And thanks for joining us for this special and snowy edition of the News at 6. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Laurel Porter. The snow's been falling in bands across parts of our region for several hours now. And Multnomah County has declared a state of emergency. That means TriMet is offering free rides to warming shelters as temperatures drop into the night. We have team coverage with crews all across town tonight, from Clark County to the West Hills to Catherine Cook, keeping an eye on the roads and Drive 8. We'll get to those crews in just a moment. But let's get straight to the man of the hour, or should we say last several hours and maybe several hours to come, our chief meteorologist, Matt Zaffino. Matt, how's it looking out there?
Hey, Laurel, thanks so much. I mean, this snowstorm, it's overachieving, let's put it that way, because it keeps snowing in the same spots, which is why the snow amounts have gotten so heavy over in East County and up into Clark County. Here's downtown Portland right now. We're still in it. I can look out the window, even though it's got dark, and still see it snowing out across the lot there. So yeah, it keeps coming down. 32 degrees. East winds are increasing now up to 23 miles an hour at the Portland airport, and it's going to get colder. And that cold air on the east side is part of the reason why we're seeing so much snow, but not for the reason that you may be thinking. I'll explain that in just a minute. Meanwhile, out in Washington County, we're finally starting to see some snow stick on the fairways and greens out of the Reserve Golf Course. There was nothing sticking there up until about a half an hour ago. Getting dark now, so we're going to lose this shot, but 32 degrees, and east winds have extended now out into Washington County. They're not super strong, but it's an indication of what's happening. Now, when you look at Doppler radar, you can see where the snow is and where it's been, and it's just sitting in the same place. Our little storm is pretty much centered right over about Cannon Beach or Seaside, and it's stalled out. It hasn't been moving, and so we're getting moisture feeding in with the westerly winds on the southern part of the low. Then it turns and starts moving north, and this is where that cold air in the East County area comes into play, because it's not just snowing harder because it's colder. It's snowing harder because that cold air is acting like a wedge and helping to lift the moisture over it. So it just keeps snowing in the same place, and the fact that this area of low pressure has stalled and isn't moving means that the snow band has stalled, and it just keeps snowing and snowing and snowing hard in some places in East County. We've had some reports of up to a foot of snow in the northern and eastern parts of Clark County, and well over 4 or 5 inches now on the east side of Portland, like Mount Tabor. I'm not talking way out east. I'm close in neighborhoods have seen several inches of snow. So that's the current situation, and it's going to keep snowing here. Now the snow is filled in a bit in Washington County too, and what will happen is this area of low pressure is going to move on off to the west, which is weird. It usually doesn't do that. And it's going to take the heavier snow with it. But right now, snowing from Hillsborough out through Portland and up towards Sandy, and it just keeps going. And I don't really see it stopping until that area of low pressure moves. And the indications are that's not going to happen very fast. But tomorrow morning, it's still just barely offshore. And then eventually, it moves farther offshore and away, and we'll begin to clear things out as we go into tomorrow. Some snow reports so far, and these need to be updated because this is now about an hour or so old, but 10 inches at Camas. We have 2.3 downtown, but again, that was at 4 o'clock. We picked up more since then. So snow continues, another 1 to 3 inches tonight, especially in East County and up in Clark County, but it is going to move west. You're going to start getting snow accumulations on the west side, east winds, and then getting much colder. Everything's going to freeze. The snow, the wet snow, the slush, it's all going to freeze as temperatures drop into the low 20s by morning. Guys?
Sounds like we are in it for a while.
Sure
winter wallop. Thank you, Matt. The drive home for many right now is a mess, and a notorious trouble spot is Burnside as drivers head up to the West Hills.
So let's check in with our Kyle Eboshi now at Burnside in 22nd. I mean, Kyle, you heard Matt there. The storm is overachieving, and now, of course, it is also dark out there, not helping.
Yeah, David, Laurel, the evening commute is a standstill. I mean, you look around here on West Burnside and you can see its taillights. Folks are just stalled out with nowhere to go. That's because in many cases cars are spinning or they're not able to get any traction. You look at the ground here, and this is the problem. Again, this is on West Burnside at about 22nd, and you've got packed slush. In many ways, worse than that snow, which is fluffy, this stuff is difficult for tires to get any real traction. If you look west on Burnside, you can see that cars are stalled there. Here's the situation from West Burnside at about 24th up to Skyline. It remains open at this hour, but according to Peabody, it is unsafe and extremely slick. Traction or snow tires are definitely suggested, but at this point, I don't even know why you'd want to go this way because you're stuck. It's also the side streets as well, creating a lot of other problems as well. Here's some video that we shot earlier in the afternoon. A pair of school buses got into a fender bender. As it was described to us, a smaller bus from Catlin Gable was stalled out. Then a larger bus carrying Portland Public School kids bumped into it. No serious damage, although neither bus could move. There were some students stuck on that school bus. Luckily, they were able to dispatch another bus, transfer those students. They got on the bus. Good news, everybody's safe, and everybody was taken away from that scene. So although it was quite dramatic with the number of school buses spinning out and a bit of a fender bender, the good news again is the students were safe in this situation. Now, as that video continues, you'll likely see many of the cars spinning out, and we saw this repeatedly throughout the afternoon. Vehicles just didn't have the traction they needed to get up this hill on West Burnside, and again from the downtown moving west, and so we saw one car after another spinning out. Luckily, some of the employees over at Ringside were nice enough to come out. They helped, and actually for about a good hour or two as we watched them, they pushed the cars to try and get them going. So they were able to get the cars out of the way, but at this hour back here live, you can see cars on West Burnside not going anywhere. Getting around town is clearly difficult. Even getting from the station, which is not far from here, maybe 10, 12 blocks, took us about an hour to get to this location. Back to you.
Thanks, Kyle. And this is just that gentle rise there before you even get to the hill. Imagine what it's like going up those windy roads into the West Hills if you can make it.
Great to see people helping each other out in circumstances like this. Let's check on some of the other roads right now for you. We want to give you a live look from some of the ODOT cams to show you conditions around the area. You saw Burnside there, but first up here is 82nd and Sandy, one of the surface streets on the east side. And you can see cars stopped on the side of the road and a lot of traffic at this slushy intersection.
All right, we want to check out the interstates. They are also backed up. Okay, this is I-5 right now at Briar, south of downtown Portland. Very, very slow going in the northbound lanes headed toward the camera here, southbound on the right side. And let's also give you a look at I-405 through downtown Portland. We heard from our crews traffic has been stopped because of that jackknife semi that we've mentioned on the Fremont Bridge that is northbound out of town. Let's bring in Catherine Cook now in Drive 8 along I-5 in Southwest Portland. I mean, Catherine, you're in it for the long haul tonight. Traffic jam, parking lot, whatever you want to call it. So where are you? How's it looking? Any better?
Hey, good evening, David. Short answer, no. We are on I-5, just about half a mile north of the 405 I-5 split, and we've moved, all of about a half a mile or so in the last hour. No more than a mile in the last hour, 45 minutes or so. It is definitely slow going out here. In fact, we were standing completely still just until about a few minutes ago, and I can happily report to you that now traffic is moving a few inches every minute. So that, if you can believe it, is progress. You can see out here on I-5 North that there is snow on the ground, plenty of traffic, and snow is coming down now as well. Our unofficial temperature gauge says it is 33 degrees. And certainly there is a worry of it freezing out here. I want to show you some video that I shot here with my cell phone in the last hour and a half or so. This gentleman we saw a few miles back before it got really snowy and dark outside. You can see he is having a tough time. He took a chance with this standstill to get out and clean his windshield wipers and clear his windshield there. Certainly visibility has been an issue out here at times. Again, the snow really started coming down here on the west side, probably a solid hour ago. But up until then, we really were only seeing wet pavement. And then in other parts of I-5 that we passed, we saw ODOT trucks laying down de-icer. Again, in anticipation of a possible freeze tonight. You certainly won't want to be on the roads then, and you definitely won't be on the roads now. In fact, out our window here, I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's a Nissan little SUV out there in front of us. They're having some difficult times standing still here on the curves. Slick roads definitely starting to get the best of people. We've seen drivers trying to sneak past on the shoulder, getting honked at on occasion, but definitely people are getting frustrated out here. We're seeing on the reader board signs that there has been a stall on I-405 North that's been causing the problems here. But again, it doesn't really matter what part of the Portland metro area you are in. There are stalls. there are delays. Traffic is a nightmare, even though we don't really have a lot of snow on the ground up here, but the driving conditions, give a lot of grief to people in our area. Back to you.
I would have to say so. You have to have a lot of patience tonight.
I mean,
and
and it
hopefully
doesn't
don't
matter.
get on the road.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter where you're going, right? Okay, we got another traffic alert, by the way. Now, this is the ramp from I-84 westbound to I-5 that's near the Moda Center. It's closed due to slick conditions. Peabot plow and salt trucks really trying to keep up everywhere. It's going to be a busy night no matter where you are.
And you can see here Peabot spokesman Dylan Rivera joining us on Zoom tonight. Dylan, what a night. So many trouble spots. We saw Burnside earlier. We've been talking about some other ones. What are the big trouble spots you're seeing?
Everywhere right now. West Hills, East Portland, east of 205 got the most accumulation from what we saw this afternoon, but this is a dynamic situation that's going to keep changing all night, and this is not the storm we prepared for. This is not the storm we prepared the public for. And so what you see, all those folks stuck on those roads, that is not a good situation. That is a very uncomfortable situation for all of them. And this is what we try to prevent through our preparedness of ourselves as an organization and our community, so everyone can prepare. But this is not the storm we were advised to get ready for.
So, Dylan, just reading between the lines here, how are you mobilizing resources? Are you finding that you're having to pull people in earlier than you thought? How is that going in terms of maybe the number of plows and the salting and the de-icing efforts now that this is much worse? I mean, in Matt Safino's words, our chief meteorologist here, he says the storm is overachieving. So what are you doing now?
Overachieving, that's one word. Yeah, so we are hoping to double the number of plows on the street by midnight. And that means, unfortunately, getting our staff through some of the traffic that you're seeing there. So there's many layers of challenges that we face in getting more plows and more salt on the roads to cope with this. This is just far earlier and far more snow, more widespread than anyone predicted.
And we heard you talk earlier in the year about staffing problems and not having enough snowplow drivers for this winter, for these conditions. Is that a problem tonight, not having enough staff?
That was not Peabot. That was not Peabot. We have always had enough staff for winter weather response. Other organizations have said different things. Peabot has had enough staff. We've been training for this sort of thing since October. We were told to get ready for a dusting of snow at 500 feet or above before dawn today. We handled that well. We were told this morning, get ready to do that again Thursday morning. No one said 2 to 3 inches citywide at the valley floor, downtown Portland, 3 hours before rush hour. No one came anywhere close to that. So this is a dramatically different event than we had been advised to prepare for. And I think the public had not been advised to prepare for this type of event.
I think this storm's been pretty hard to predict, and I know Matt will be talking about that a little bit later. Dylan, salt is always, a big topic when we have snow. How many salt trucks will be out there? Where will you have crews spreading the salt?
We'll have our salt crews on every route, and we will be deploying them as soon as possible. We've been as proactive as we could be, given the forecast that we were told to plan for, and we'll have all our salt routes, treated. We'll have a full complement of folks before dawn tomorrow working those routes, and 82nd Avenue is a new route for us. That'll be treated as well. So, we're going to throw everything we've got at this, but this came at a different time and far different magnitude than anyone was expecting, and so that's unfortunately why you see so many people stuck out there right now, and everything we're going to be working through, followed up tomorrow by a freeze. So that's not going to help us at all. But when we get our plows and our salt trucks out there more completely on our routes, then you'll see that material start to diminish. We'll get that inch that thin layer of material down on those plow routes, and then you'll see our plows and you'll see traffic then breaking that up, and that'll make the streets passable as soon as possible, hopefully, and keep public transit going so folks don't have to get behind the wheel. Folks can rely on public transit, and so police and firefighters can get where they need to go, and that's our mission in winter weather.
All right, Dylan Rivera with PBOT there. We appreciate your time tonight. Good luck over the next few hours. We'll check back in with you, Laurel. Just thinking about what Dylan is telling us, saying essentially they were not prepared based on what forecasters predicted for the timing, the duration, how much snow we were going to get. And Matt just pointing out that low pressure system essentially stalling out, which means the snow just keeps coming.
And then the concern about the freeze overnight and everything freezing tomorrow morning.
Round two, right? You could call it that. All right, let's talk about what's happening tonight, though. Multnomah County will be opening 4 severe weather shelters at 8 o'clock. There are 4 sites. Here they are on your screen. Arbor Lodge, corner of North Lombard and Denver, the Charles Jordan Community Center on North Foss Avenue, Salvation Army Moore Street Gym, that is on North Williams, and the East Portland Community Center on Southeast 106th. No one will be turned away. Free transportation is available on TriMet. A reminder, you can also call 211 for more details.
And many of you have been sending in some really great photos and video of what it looks like in your neighborhood. We'll take a look at your pictures straight ahead. We're also going to check in with our crew in Clark County, where they really got hit. Camas getting 10 inches plus, so stick around for that.
Welcome back to KGW and our continuing coverage of this winter wallop. Now, Clark County was one of the first spots to see significant snow today. Let's head out there where we find our Joe Ranieri. Joe, as Matt was just telling us, in some parts of eastern county, looks like up to a foot of snow. You have been out there for hours now. Thank you, by the way. What are you seeing right now?
Hey, David, good evening to you. Yeah, the conditions out here in southwest Washington and throughout parts of Clark County have really worsened in terms of conditions. The snow has basically been steady since we pulled up here. We're along the waterfront here on Vancouver, and we've been seeing the snow showers really pile up. In terms of accumulation, I would just venture a guess anywhere from 2 to 3 inches, maybe a little bit more in a few locations. We're live here along the waterfront where you start to see a few people kind of spill out. Some of the restaurants have had a chance change their hours and kind of close a little earlier tonight because of the road conditions. And again, we also have been noticing the winds pick up a little bit here in the last couple of hours or so. But where we were at earlier today was over on the east side of I-5 in rural parts of Clark County over in Camas, where they saw close to a foot of snow in a few locations. Matt Safino was talking about that was one of the better spots of seeing the snow earlier today. And we were seeing several people having a hard time getting up to some of the side streets up in Camas, and they're not that high above sea level. Right around 350, 400 feet is where we were near Klickitat Park just several hours ago or so. But I did talk with some people out here that live in the area of Vancouver, and they said they've been seeing the snow come down basically since about late this morning, and it's been nonstop. You factor in the snow and the cold conditions, it's a little bit miserable out here. Not many people have been kind of venturing out here, but again, with the 3 to 4 inches of snow I've been telling you about that we're seeing right now on the ground and more falling, traveling through parts of Vancouver, Portland is going to be challenging to say the least over the next couple of hours and into tomorrow as the snow showers continue. Again, we haven't seen these snow showers out here in Vancouver let up at least since about 1:15, 1:30 when we got here. So it's a pretty scene, but again, like we've been telling you, Kyle Boshi and Catherine Cook have been telling you all afternoon and evening, if you don't have to drive in this, do not. Just curl up next to the fire and enjoy the scene from the privacy of your home and the warmth of your home as well. Back to you.
Joe Ranieri, a lonely soul right now out on the Vancouver waterfront.
Curling up next to the fire sounds really nice
not
right
bad,
now. Matt's here now. We heard Dylan Rivera with PBOT earlier say this is not the storm that they expected, they prepared for, or that they prepared the public for. Tell us what happened. This is really tricky to predict.
Well, you can hear the frustration in Dylan's voice because he's going to get a lot of heat from the public about, hey, how come the roads are a mess? So I get it. As far as the storm goes, these are really hard to predict. And anytime we talk about snow in the Portland area, I think a lot of Portlanders understood, okay, I need to be ready for, everything from nothing to a lot of snow. This one has been really tricky because, like we talked about earlier, it has stalled. So the snow just keeps going in the same area. It's kind of like a machine. It just keeps rolling in the same places. Forecasting a storm to stall and to see 6 inches of snow on Mount Tabor and no snow in Hillsborough by 5 o'clock in the afternoon is really difficult, not only for human forecasters, but we rely on computer models, which have been all over the map over the last couple of days. And, you look at the guidance and it's like, okay, and you look at several different models, but run-to-run consistency with those models has been non-existent. So take just model A, for instance, okay? And like at one point it's saying, okay, there's going to be, a half an inch of snow, and then 12 hours later, it's saying there's going to be 4 inches of snow, and then 12 hours after that, it's like, no, it's going to be a half an inch of snow. So it's not very reliable guidance, and that's because these systems are so fickle and they're such small scale, they're hard for computers and humans to pin down and tell exactly what's going to happen.
And we saw Camas get, 10 inches plus.
10 inches plus at 4 o'clock, and you've been up on the roof measuring our snow gauge here too, right? 2.5 much earlier, so I imagine it's much more. So what's the sense of when it might get moving again and when this might end?
I think it's going to slowly begin to move offshore, but really slowly. I haven't really seen it move much yet, so it's still snowing to the east of us. That East County area is right in the northeast quadrant of this storm, and it's the perfect spot because we have cold air from the gorge. And as I mentioned earlier, it's not just the fact that it's colder there, but that cold air acts like a wedge and it lifts the air and it makes it snow even more. To get precipitation of any kind, you need lift, meaning you need air to be rising, you need vertical ascent within the column of the air mass, and that's what makes cloud and precipitation. And a cold air wedge like that can act like a mountain. The other air coming over, it just rides over the top. You get that lift and you get enhanced precipitation rates. There is I-5 right now. It's 32 at the airport. The east wind is picking up at 24 miles an hour, and it will continue to get colder. And I know this is almost dark, but we are seeing snow on the ground now out in Washington County, whereas a couple hours ago we were not. So looking at Doppler radar, and you can see the circulation center here once this gets rolling again. It's right about here, right about Seaside or Cannon Beach. Now we're starting to see some more precipitation roll into the middle of that, but we're still getting this feed from west to east to the south and then riding up to the north. And right here in central and eastern Multnomah County and up into Clark County, that's where we're getting everything coming together where it's cold. We're getting the moisture rolling in from south to north over the top. Meanwhile, at the surface, we have that east wind. and it just keeps snowing there, but it is filling in to the west. So what we want to see happen is we want to see that this low is going to move westward, which again is weird. They don't usually do that in this kind of a situation. So this one is going to eventually push on offshore, and we'll see the snow end. But right now it's just still snowing where it has been snowing, and you don't really see much of a change here in Multnomah County and the northern parts of Clackamas County. So let's look at the models. And again, we rely on these, but you have to be able to, take it with a grain of salt sometimes. This is by 7:30 tonight, east winds extending offshore. There's the heaviest precipitation along the coast. We'll see this actually pans out. Now, as I was looking at this over the last couple of days, and I showed you on air, it had this center of low pressure, which is now here. It had it between Portland and Salem. And I said, if that verified, then we could see some heavier snow in the region. And, we did, even though the point is the models didn't exactly nail exactly where that would form. It did form. We're getting the snow. It's going to continue for a couple more hours tonight. And then we may see another snow band early in the morning tomorrow. So the point is we're going to get more snow. We have already had several inches, as you know. There's going to be probably several more, 2-3 inches more on top of what we've already had in the areas where we're seeing the heaviest snow. East winds will overtake the entire region tomorrow, and we'll eventually see this taper off to the snow showers, flurries, and then it'll clear off. But it is going to be really, really cold. So I'm going to say another 1 to 3 inches tonight, but some places may get another 4 or 5 inches. And it's going to keep going. The east wind spreading from east to west and extending offshore by tomorrow. And then the other thing that's going to really exacerbate the situation for drivers and everybody, it's getting colder now. Everything's going to freeze as we get deeper into the evening hours, and eventually cars hopefully get off the road. And without that friction from the wheels, things are going to freeze, and it's going to become a rather solid ice tomorrow morning. Winter weather advisory continuing in the Portland area until tomorrow morning as well. Winter storm warning here. Winter weather advisory farther south, and haven't talked much about the mid and southern valley, but the snow is likely to spread southward too as that area of low pressure moves offshore and then begins to move south. So we need to keep that in mind for folks in Salem and then south towards Eugene. You're going to get more snow. Here's the satellite imagery, and you can see the feed and the circulation. And again, it hasn't moved a whole lot. If anything, maybe it's moving a little bit north, but eventually that should move offshore a bit, and we'll begin to see the snow taper off. But that may not happen until late tonight or tomorrow morning. It's 32 right now. Our camera downtown is just blasted with ice and snow. That was the Wells Fargo Skycam. So snow tonight, upwards of another 3 inches or so, and then windy and cold tomorrow. Morning low at 23, then a high of 31, and then even colder on Friday and Saturday morning. We're back after this.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage. 32 degrees in the Rose City, but with those east winds, it is feeling a whole lot colder with the snow coming down across much of the region. So we asked you to share your winter weather photos with us. And guess what? You delivered.
Brittany Falkers has been sorting through all these snowy shots. And Brittany, thanks to our viewers at home, we're getting a look at the impact Mother Nature is having all across Oregon and Southwest Washington.
Yeah, and guys, we know that this winter weather is a pain for a lot of folks, especially if you have to be out there driving. So we want to bring a little light to this situation, especially with this guy right here. This is in Troutdale, and we know the doggos. They are loving this snow, so give them a treat when you get home and let them out in the snow to play. Thanks to Miss Chloe Baker for sending us that awesome photo. Todd took this one while the snow was accumulating in his area. He didn't say where this was taken, but you can tell it was when the sun decided to take just a little peek outside, because we actually have some blue skies in this area. This one kind of shows what it's been like for so many of us. Just kind of near whiteout conditions, lots of snowflakes flying. Thanks to Bert for sending this bad boy in. Amy decided to stay inside for her photo. You can kind of see she's looking out through the screen of the window, but she says she got an inch plus everywhere near Southeast Powell, not far from Mount Tabor. This was, of course, earlier today, and we know that the snow has continued to accumulate. I think we've gotten about 4 inches now in the Mount Tabor area. So keep those photos coming, everybody. They help us really tell a greater picture of what it's like out there. Guys?
With 1 to 3 inches, potentially more on the way. Thank you, Brittany. Our special coverage of this winter storm hitting our region continues now at 6:30. Tim Gordon's going to give us a look at the snow building up in the Mount Scott-Arleta area in southeast Portland. We'll also check in with ODOT to get an update on what's happening on our highways. We kind of know what's happening. Nobody's going anywhere.
Slow go. And we'll share more of your snowy pictures. A reminder, you can send them to us by texting them to this number, 503-226-5088. We'll be right back.
I'll ask you about it for our story. We'd love to hear from you. I'm good. You sure? Testing 1, 2, 3, 3, 2. This mic's working. Piece of cake.
News at 6:30.
Welcome back to KGW News. We are monitoring major traffic issues around the metro area because of all the snow tonight. And this is a look at a big trouble spot in northwest Portland headed into the West Hills. In other spots, the snow's made for really a beautiful winter wonderland scene, like at Waterfront Park in Vancouver.
Well, the bottom line really tonight, stay off the roads and know that it will take loved ones and everybody else much, much longer to get home or wherever they're going. We're going to continue our team coverage around the area, beginning now with Tim Gordon, who is live in Happy Valley. Tim, drivers are having trouble getting around. We know this. And it also looks like from where you are in the upper left there that it is snowing sideways.
Yep, David, it's snowing sideways for sure. The wind's picked up. We're on Johnson Creek Boulevard, and this is just off at 92nd Avenue. And this hill is apparently notorious for this, but you see the vehicles trying to come up the hill. There's one that's stuck right there. There's another one below that's thinking about trying to, if they can even try it. But this is a really slippery situation. What happens is they're going up this hill and two-wheel drive, no snow tires, etc. People just aren't making it, and it's exacerbated by up the hill at the light there. When the light's red, well, then everybody's got to stop. Once you stop, you kind of lost it. So that's what's happening. That's also the flashing lights up there are also a small TriMet van that is stuck and just put out its pylons waiting for help. So yeah, this is it's actually kind of quieted down here right now. It was a super chaotic scene when we pulled up a while ago. There were several vehicles stopped kind of in the middle of the roadway. There's a guy who lives, I tried to get him to talk to us on camera, but he's shy and he ran away. But he's a good Samaritan. He lives right by here, and he says this happens all the time on this spot, and he comes out here and helps. So some good people trying to help people get up this one particular hill. Obviously, just one small example, just a little bit of elevation and slippery conditions of the trouble that you can have. I'm sure this is happening in multiple places throughout the metro area. But here we are right inside Happy Valley, and it's not so happy here right now. Although it is beautiful if you're not driving. So get home safe, everybody. Guys, back to you.
Well, that is the key. Don't head out there. Don't drive. You heard it from Tim, who's out there in the snow with it blowing sideways. And speaking of driving, let's go to Drive 8 and check in on the road conditions. I mean, Catherine Cook's been in there for at least the last 2.5 hours. Most of the time, really not going anywhere, right?
2.5 hours? Maybe more, David, maybe more. And yeah, we haven't moved more than I'd say maybe a mile and a half in the last at least hour and a half. It's really quite a scene out here. We're on I-5 right now, just about to go underneath the Corbett overpass, as you can see. This is really the most we've moved in the last 2 hours or so. Intermittent, just little stretches of a few blocks. And, you know, it's tough. There are accidents all over the Portland metro area, and that includes here on I-5 as well as I-405 ahead of us, stalled vehicles, and that's what's creating this backup. A few blocks back, we saw a couple guys get out of a box truck, and it looked like they were getting ready to chain up their tires in anticipation of more slick roads ahead. Right now it is snowing out here, and accumulation is pretty mild, only about 1 to 2 inches, if that. But certainly there is anticipation of a freeze. Earlier we saw ODOT trucks going by laying down de-icer in preparation of that. And it's just definitely, you know, let's just speak freely here if I can. Folks out here in the Portland metro area, we're not used to this. Drivers just don't really, you know, it's tough for a lot of folks, and you can see that out here. And certainly there is some slick spots for folks as they're trying to make their way home. I just hope that everybody has enough gas in their tanks, because if they're like us, they've just been sitting idling for the last 2 hours or so, barely moving, but really hoping that everyone makes it to where they're heading to tonight. David, Laurel.
And has a strong bladder. You know, that can always be a problem. I know when I'm stuck in traffic,
worry, right?
I know. Well, good luck if you're trying to get to the West Hills by taking West Burnside. Cars are struggling to make that trek.
Let's check back in with our Kyle Aboshi. Kyle, I mean, that's always a trouble spot. It's good to see that people are helping out however they can, though.
They're trying the best they can. David, Laura, good evening to you. Problem is, it's not just West Burnside. I mean, it's all directions. I look over here on Vista. Cars heading up are getting stuck. I look in the other direction in 23rd, cars are stalled out. And then behind me is the real trouble spot. This is West Burnside heading up over the hill towards Skyline. And you can see they're not going anywhere, and they haven't been going anywhere for quite some time. You can see the bright sign behind, carry chains or traction devices. Good advice, but again, folks heading that direction aren't getting anywhere. Oftentimes they do close that down, and at this point they haven't. ODOT is describing it as unsafe and slick, which indeed it does appear to be so, but cars really are not moving that way. So certainly not an area you want to be headed, thinking maybe you can get around 26, going over the hill on Burnside, not something that's going to work tonight. Again, the real challenge here is the conditions. So as we've been describing, it's a wet slush that's really packed, and you can see a lot of the vehicles have been slipping on this, no real traction. My concern is as it gets colder and potentially freezes, this could be real troublesome. But let's go ahead and walk down West Burnside a little ways just to give you a sense of what we're dealing with. Again, cars stuck, and oftentimes we've seen workers at nearby businesses, restaurants. Down at Ringside, they came out and helped out folks. For several hours, they were pushing cars, trying to get them going, but you can see they're just backed up, and these cars are stalled. The problem is you've got a pretty steep incline here on West Burnside, and so we'll see these cars when something finally gets moving, the log jam brakes for a little bit, and suddenly you see tires spinning, and that's the problem is you have other cars that are just stuck and stranded. So it's really rough here on West Burnside, heading westbound for sure, but also in the eastbound lanes heading towards downtown. They're not going anywhere either.
Well, thank you, Kyle. Let's hope everybody gets home safely. We want to talk more about the plow drivers out there trying to make things a little smoother for us. David House with ODOT joins us on Zoom.
Hey, David, I want to be blunt here. I mean, we're looking at these reports coming in fast and furious delays. The Fremont Bridge has a jackknife semi going out of downtown Portland. 84 shut down as it merges into I-5 there because of a closure there on the ramps. I mean, what are your crews doing? Where do you start when it gets this bad so quickly?
Well, when it gets this bad so quickly, there's no way that all the crews with ODOT and cities can keep up with it. We just can't be everywhere at the same time. And I think Kyle described the situation really, really well. We've already got slush on the ground, and that's slippery when it's slushy, and we're expecting more precipitation overnight and well below freezing temperatures. And that is just the ideal, as they say, the perfect storm that creates ice in the morning. And this is a very widespread event. What you're seeing right now is happening all over the lowlands as we speak, and will get worse overnight. So this is one of those days, and it looks like this is the one critical period, the next 12, 24 hours, where if there's any way you could stay off the roads, that's your best bet. Because if you do go out, you've got to be really prepared. You've got to have the traction tires or the chains, be prepared for a long wait, and be prepared for temporary closures because the conditions are so slippery and dangerous, and crews need time to catch up with plowing or de-icing or sanding.
Well, David, how do you handle that with the temperature staying below freezing tonight and freezing over like that? What steps can you take? What can your plow drivers, your de-icers do to try to make things a little bit better?
So the deeper ice and packed snow gets, the harder it is to deal with that, because de-icer, if there's too much for a de-icer, it's too cold, it's too thick. There just can't be enough de-icer. Plowing is limited. Snow blowing doesn't work unless it's actually snow, and gravel only works a bit. And again, you can't be everywhere all the time. And this is a statewide event tonight. Really is statewide, and that includes the passes. If you're planning on going anywhere long distance in Oregon, there are going to be closures. It's guaranteed we're going to see traction tire and chain requirements and temporary closures to catch up with the plowing.
And David, we heard from Dylan Rivera with PVOT a short time ago, essentially saying this was not the storm they prepared for. They are trying to play catch up. We've seen your trucks, though, out on the highways. Is that the sense of where you are right now, that you're really trying to play catch up and this is a whole lot worse than you expected?
I think tonight will be a little worse than we expected, but this time of year with this kind of really, really wild weather, we expect the unexpected. So what we can do is, for this week, knowing that we had some weather event coming, lower temperatures, precipitation, all hands on board. To do as much as we can to focus on the key arterials. And that is, what's vital to get not just people where they need to go, but freight where it needs to go, and minimize the disruptions. But there will be disruptions for the next probably 24 hours because this is the worst case scenario when you've got this much precipitation plus such low temperatures.
Can you talk a little bit about salt? Do you all use salt, and are you going to be doing that tonight?
there are some areas where we use salt. It's only on parts of I-5 and parts of 84. Most of the time we use a de-icer that works fine in the lower elevations and not the most extreme environments, like the high elevations of Southern Oregon I-5 or way out east on 84. So we do use it in some areas, and we use a regular de-icer in many other areas, in addition to sanding and plowing.
And do you have enough crews? I was asking Peabody about that because I thought I'd heard about driver shortages, and Dylan Rivera said they didn't have any shortages. Are you up to staff?
We're not fully staffed, but we're better. We're doing better than we were doing last winter, and we are able, when we see an event like this coming, we are able to schedule in advance and make sure that everyone who could possibly be available is available, and then adjust schedules after the weather event. So we've got everyone out there we can, but there's no way the cities and the state could keep up with an event like this that's so widespread. I mean, it's hitting everywhere almost simultaneously.
And David, a final thought before we let you go as we look at these live images from Drive 8 with Catherine Cook and team, again, still sitting on I-5 northbound, approaching the south waterfront, really creeping maybe a quarter mile or even less than that at a time. I mean, she's been on the road for hours there. David, your advice for anybody who is not on the road thinking about heading out here?
Definitely, if there's any way possible, you could just stay off the road, stay home, wait till tomorrow. If you really need to go somewhere tomorrow, first check the conditions in your neighborhood, and then use tripcheck.com and see what the conditions are between where you are and where you want to be, because that's really important. If you're going through some area where there's a closure, or the conditions are just too slippery, or the snow too deep, then you really want to delay that travel as much as you can. Things should warm up in the afternoons and improve, but we will see freezing again and again every night for several nights.
Well, we look forward to the improvement. David House, best of luck to you and your crews with ODOT. Thanks for joining us. We're going to go now to Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino in the Weather Center. That's the key right now, is when are we going to see the snow stop and when will things warm up, Matt?
Yeah, David House made a lot of great points there. And one of them is that the timing was awful with this, because the snowfall really picked up and the accumulations really began to pick up right when people were trying to get home in the afternoon. So as the volume of traffic begins to diminish and people get home one way or another, then things should begin to improve a bit. As far as the weather goes, it's going to keep snowing for a few more hours at least tonight, and it's going to get very cold overnight tonight. And then tomorrow we'll get some sun. Temperatures will climb to about freezing, which isn't going to melt everything off. The snow is going to stick around for a while, but at least people have had a time to kind of, get in place, and there won't be as much traffic out on the road, so things should be improving at that point. This is interesting from our Rose City Skycam. This is the on-ramp to I-84 from I-5 northbound, and that was clogged up earlier with traffic. Now that's empty. This is I-5 northbound over here, and it's moving, but it's moving slowly, as you would expect. I-5 southbound looks like it's stop and go there as well. And of course, you can see the snow continues to fall in downtown Portland, where it is 32 degrees. This is another ODOT camera. This is I-5 at Briar, and man, that looks like, I believe that's the northbound where it's all backed up, and the southbound traffic is moving a little bit better. But yeah, all of the road, and look at all the snow on the side of the road here. And that looks like, maybe 3, 4, 5 inches there as it keeps on coming down. Okay, here's the deal. East winds now are spreading out into Washington County, but still southwest winds in McMinnville and south winds in Aurora. And what that tells us is our overachieving storm hasn't really moved a whole lot. It's drawing the east wind out towards the coast, but then the return circulation is why we have that southwest and south wind in Aurora and McMinnville, which means that's just feeding more moisture up over East Clark County, or all of Clark County, and much of Multnomah County, and continuing to make it snow. Those south winds have not backed off at all. What we want to see happen is we want to see these winds, believe it or not, we want to see more of an east or northeast wind. I know that makes it colder, but that will mean that our area of low pressure, our storm, is going to begin to move away, and that just hasn't happened yet. See the south wind, it's really light at Tillamook, east wind at Astoria. So again, it's kind of right in there, and that's exactly where it's been for the last several hours, so it just keeps snowing in the same places. And in fact, the snow area has expanded a bit as cold air has moved over. So we're down to freezing now all across the metro area, and this is Doppler radar showing the snow just hammering us, and it hasn't really changed very much. It's all over the metro area, still some rain farther south, but Salem, I know you haven't had any snow yet, but you're going to get it. So be ready farther south along I-5. Prepare now to not be on the roads late tonight and tomorrow morning, because you're going to get it quite a bit as the snow continues to fly there. In fact, we see another snow band moving in, it looks like around 2-3 a.m., so we need to watch that very carefully. So bottom line, guys, is that the snow will continue tonight. We've seen several inches, as you have seen, up to 9 inches now in Sandy, another 1 to 3, maybe more in East County as this storm has stalled out. It just keeps snowing, and then it's going to get very cold overnight tonight, tomorrow morning. So the snow that we have is not going to go away anytime soon. Back to you.
Yeah, to say nothing of that deep freeze, as you mentioned, overnight and in the early morning hours. Thank you, Matt. I've been hanging on to 4 pages of closures here, but we just got our first school closures. This is for tomorrow, for Thursday. So here they are: Gresham, Battleground, Vancouver, Scappoose, Park Rose, and St. Helens school districts all preemptively closing for Thursday. Of course, we expect this list as the evening goes on to grow.
Yes, it's no wonder about the closures. We have more weather coverage ahead for you. Brittany Falkers joins us after the break to share more of your snow pictures. We'll be right back.
stayed put because, as Kyle has been showing us, it is tricky driving around downtown right now. But it's not all traffic jams. It was also a snow day for some kids out there, or at least a short school day. Rob shared this photo on Twitter of a very excited kid with a big old snowball ready for throwing. That looks like so much fun. Wish I could be there with you. And the snow might be really throwing some of our animals off. Let's be real here. Look at this bird that's just looking for some seeds that Anna Acosta Mills left out for it. Maybe a little confused there. Meanwhile, Shannon O'Connor's dogs in Southeast Portland are just loving this fresh powder. This is Lola and Cleo playing in the snow in the backyard. And I gotta say, a snow-covered pooch is one of my favorite things, guys. That is until the snow melts, because then at that point you have a wet dog. That's not as fun.
Love the snow dogs.
At least they're
for
happy,
sure.
right?
Exactly.
All smiles, even in the snow. Not in traffic, though, right?
Thank you, Brittany. Ash Wednesday today and Snow Wednesday, a really snowy Wednesday.
Really snowy one. Yeah. No, it's not over. And as I'm thinking about this, we need to be prepared for potential power outages tomorrow, because we've got this heavy, wet snow now weighing down tree limbs, power lines. The east wind is going to pick up, so we're going to add wind to it. So we may be looking at power outages later tonight, tomorrow morning too. So whatever you need to do to prepare for that, make sure you know where your flashlights are. Bring some wood in, whatever it is you need to do, just think about that.
And Matt, to your point here, just checking PGE 300 out, so not too bad. Clark County 300 out. Some of those are from down trees. I don't know if they're storm related, because they look like they were earlier, but
that could go up
good
tonight.
Advice to get prepared now for what comes next.
Exactly, yeah. So that is a concern too. So just be ready for that as we go through the rest of the evening hours. We've been showing you the shot all evening because it's just so snowy. And honestly, a couple of the other cameras that I'd like to show you are stuck or frozen, and I can't move them. But this one is illuminated, showing that it's still snowing, and snowing quite heavily still in downtown Portland. 31 degrees here right now. On Doppler radar, the snow continues where it has been. We're still getting moisture feeding in south of this area of low pressure, which is still spinning around just south of Astoria. As long as it does, we continue with the winter weather. We have a winter storm warning here in the valley until 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. And you can see the circulation right here, and such is the problem. The moisture coming in off the ocean, then spinning north over the cold air that is now on the east side of town. And I really don't see that changing much. Here is where it's modeled to be now, and I think that might be a little farther west than from where it really is. Eventually it moves offshore, but even by 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, it's not that far away, and we still have some snow over us at that point, but by then it should be a lot lighter, and we will be getting out of it as we go into the morning hours. 31 freezing level at 1,400 feet this morning, but that's really a moot point. So snow, another 3 inches possible tonight, really likely in some areas, and then windy and cold tomorrow with a high of only 31 and then lows down around 20 as we go into Friday and Saturday morning. So the snow we have is going to be with us for quite a while.
Thank you, Matt. And as we go to break, we're going to take a look at the Rose City Skycam. It's snowed in, 32 degrees out there. It looks like traffic moving a little bit there.
It also looks like there's nobody on those roads. Look at that I-5 underneath, and then you got a couple of vehicles that look like they've almost been abandoned on the far left of the screen. Again, if you don't have to be out there, do not get on those roads. It's not getting better.
And we'll be back at 7 o'clock. Areas in southwest Washington got hit with snow first and big time. Some areas saw around half a foot or more. Camas had more than 10 inches. Meanwhile, the west side of the metro along Highway 26 avoided the snow for much of the afternoon, but now it's coming down there too.
You know what? All that creating a mess on the roads for the evening drive home tonight as this slush chokes local highways, interstates and streets. We're talking about jackknife trucks, ramps closed, and temperatures dropping into the night. The icy road conditions are expected to get even worse. Well, thanks for joining us for our continuing coverage. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Laurel Porter. We also have a number of school closures already announced for tomorrow. So I know kids are really paying attention as well as parents. So far, the Gresham School District, Battleground School District, Vancouver School District, Washougal Schools, Scappoose, Park Rose School District, and St. Helens School Districts have all announced they will be closed tomorrow. You can keep track of delays and closures on kgw.com. We've also reached out to Portland Public Schools for their plans, and we'll update you when we hear back from them.
All right, let's check in with team coverage. Our team of reporters has been spread out across the area all afternoon, covering the storm as it really moved into Portland and hit our area. We're going to check in with Matt Zaffino in just a moment, but let us start with Joe Ranieri, Washington, on the Vancouver waterfront. Joe, when we checked in with you about half an hour ago, you were calling it a nightmare out there. It looks like it's snowing sideways. How are you feeling right now?
Well, thank you for asking. I feel pretty uncomfortable because we've been out here basically all morning and all afternoon, but you know, it's pretty quiet out here along the waterfront. But man, we definitely have seen the conditions change dramatically. Again, we got out here earlier this afternoon, I'd say 1:15, 1:30. It was really pretty. It was the light dusting along the sidewalks, and those snow showers, Dave and Laurel, have not let up. And I'd say there's at least 3, maybe 4 inches of snow, and you factor in that east wind, and I tell you, I feel like it's picked up here over the last hour or two. It makes things a little bit worse. But again, I checked in with a couple of the restaurants and the businesses along the waterfront, and they already have signs that they have already closed or they plan on closing early tonight because of the snow. Again, all the heavy snow that we saw earlier today was just on the east side of I-5 over in Clark County. They saw an incredible bounce. Over in Camas, my photographer and I, Kurt Austin, were out there a good part of the morning where people were having a hard time navigating some of the side streets. Again, when we were out there, they saw about a half of a foot of snow. Again, looking at some reports that Matt Zaffino has been talking about, they're looking at close to 10, maybe 12 inches of snow in a few locations. So things are going to be really challenging in the more rural spots. And again, it was all elevation dependent now, but like Matt has been saying, we're all seeing it right now. And we're in Vancouver here, where I talked with a gal who lives in this area who was a little surprised to see the snow earlier this morning. Here's what she had to say.
This is insane. Yeah, it's gorgeous. Yeah.
I mean, were you expecting it?
No, not at all. I mean, I kind of was hoping this morning when I woke up that there would be a few flurries, but I was not expecting this much at all.
And David and Laurel, this is more than just a few flurries out here. I would say, again, anywhere from 3 to 4 inches of snow, and the snow really hasn't stopped since we got here this afternoon, and it doesn't look like it's going to appear to have stopped. But like we've been telling you all night long, the best bet, if you can avoid the roads, to do just that, unless you really have to get out to maybe the grocery store to pick some things up just to be on the safe side. But again, it is snowing hard, and the wind has been nonstop here the last couple of hours. Reporting live in Vancouver tonight, Joe Ranieri, KGW News.
Well, thank you, Joe. We really appreciate it. Looks like your lips are about to freeze up there out in that wind. We do appreciate it. Thank you.
Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino joins us now with the latest snow totals, what's still ahead for the evening. Matt, this is a lot more snow than a lot of folks expected, more than the weather models expected. To help us understand what happened.
Yeah, I mean, basically the storm stalled out, so it just keeps snowing and snowing in the same place. And I keep looking at the latest observations, see if there's any sign of it moving, and I'm not really seeing it. What I do see on Doppler radar is that it keeps snowing in the same places it's been snowing, which is mainly the east side of Portland up into Clark County, but now it's expanded to the west side too. You can see on Doppler radar here, now it's snowing across most of Washington County right now. Still some rain mixed in with the snow down in Yamhill County. And there's a reason for that, which I'll show you in a minute, but it just keeps on going. And so that's really the thing with this storm, is that it stalled out, and it stalled out in a position that allowed the snow to just keep going, mainly on the east side. Look, we're still getting moisture flowing on shore down around Newport. Let's just loop again. See, everything's moving this way from Newport to Salem, and then it rotates up, and that's where it's encountering the cold air coming out of the gorge. It's getting extra lift because of that, and so it just keeps snowing there, and then it's expanding to the west. as I look at the winds, I'm not seeing much of a wind shift yet in anywhere that would show that this system is moving. Temperatures are dropping. We're now below freezing here, and it's in the 20s, Hood River, the Dalles, and Pendleton, whereas before it was not. They were in the 30s. Up at Astoria, 36 degrees. But let's look at the winds because this is key. Notice the east winds now extending out through Hillsborough, but still McMinnville has gone lighter. It was 15 miles an hour ago. Now it's down to 7. Still a south wind in Aurora. So the flow is like this. This is a giant pinwheel, basically. Everything's rolling counterclockwise around that area of low pressure, which is stuck between Astoria and Tillamook. Now here's a sign of some change. The winds are lightening up at Astoria and at Tillamook too. So potentially this is beginning to move a little farther away. The winter storm warning for the valley for the Portland area continues now until 4 a.m. And you can see on the wide view of the satellite and radar combined, we're still getting moisture wrapping around this. I'm not seeing it bodily move away yet. It may be weakening a little, but we need this thing to move away from us, move offshore, and then point south for us to really get out of this. So here's the model on this. This is where the center of it is now. By the model, just offshore, but look, by 9 a.m. it finally moves away, and there's still some snow bands over Western Oregon at that point. So we're going to be in this for several more hours until this storm begins.
All right,
both move away. 31 degrees right now. We expect another about 3 inches of snow tonight, guys.
All right, thanks, Matt. We appreciate you following up on every little twist and turn here. It sounds like a little bit of progress maybe there with that system and the winds, at least out at the coast. Could take a while for it to reach us, though.
And because of all the snow and what's happening out there, the drive home for many is a real challenge tonight. And a notorious trouble spot is Burnside as drivers try to head up to the West Hills.
Yeah, let's bring in our Kyle Leboshi. I mean, Kyle, just looking back at my notes here, we heard from ODOT. They are calling this a worst case scenario, this much precipitation. Dylan Rivera with PBOT said, honestly, they're playing catch up. This is not the storm they prepared for. What are you seeing? Are people abandoning their vehicles? Are they getting the help they need? Kind of walk us through what's happening right now.
No, folks are being patient. They're obviously frustrated. We should remind folks, though, it's also somewhat dangerous. A few minutes ago, we saw a pretty good-sized fender bender on Vista and Burnside. 2 cars smashed into each other. Luckily, no injuries, but it speaks to the risk out here, that with the tires spinning and such. Behind me, you can see West Burnside, and things continue to be backed up. In fact, a TriMet bus there, sorry, not in service, and you can understand why. They're stuck. Tried to get up the hill here on West Burnside like a lot of other vehicles. You look at this blue car here. We've seen this all afternoon long. The tires just spin, the tires spin and spin. Luckily, there's some good Samaritans out there helping people out from time to time, but they're doing everything they can to get moving again. In fact, we saw a big Amazon truck that was stuck right in this corner not too long ago. These are some of the delivery boxes they used. They left them behind, but they put those behind the tires to get some traction to get up the hill. So that Amazon truck driver was able to get going, but it wasn't easy. He was stuck here for quite some time. Let's look up West Burnside, and you can see the challenge, and we've been documenting this for several hours now. Cars basically stuck. They're not going anywhere because they're trying to get up West Burnside towards Skyline, and the problem is folks are just not, they don't have the traction to get up the hill there, even though traction devices, maybe chains are recommended. A lot of folks don't have them. They weren't prepared for this, and so as a result, they're backed up. The other thing is it's the side streets. So not only the busy West Burnside, which we've known to be a trouble spot, but also here you can see the side roads as well. You've got cars that just can't make it up and they end up turning around, and that creates a logjam as well. So certainly a really challenging situation for a lot of folks out here this afternoon. Luckily, most folks have a lot of patience. They understand it's going to take some time to get home, but we've been repeating this over and over. If you don't need to be heading out, don't, because it's not a night to be out driving around. It's just too tricky out here.
People walking there, they have the right idea. They probably get up the hill a lot faster. Thank you, Kyle. It's not just the streets. Many of the major interstates and highways also came to a standstill tonight.
Let's go back to Drive 8 and Catherine Cook. I mean, Catherine, that jackknife truck on the Fremont Bridge, the ramps from I-84 to I-5, both directions shut down. You started out pretty good on the west side, and then you got on I-5 north, sort of in Terwilliger, and then up through the curves and into down. Well, I guess the question is, have you made it to downtown yet? I mean, it's been hours.
Yeah, David, you mentioned we hit I-5. The bosses said, go check it out. It'll be fine, they said. 2.5 hours later, we've traveled 5 miles, David and Laurel. Definitely, we're feeling it out here. I want to turn the camera around so you can have a look for yourself. You can see we've got about, 3 inches of snow on the ground, and cars, trucks ahead of us are going nowhere. We took a little video about an hour ago to illustrate a really momentous time in our journey this evening. The time when our car moved approximately, I don't know, an eighth of a mile. That's generous. But what you're seeing there is about a quarter mile before the macadam exit. We saw some folks getting out of a box truck, likely to go chain up, and saw some other folks just, stalled out, getting some help from some emergency crews. I'll tell you what, if you do not have traction devices, you do not want to be out here. If you do have traction devices, you do not want to be out here. It is as simple as that. The entire Portland metro area is in gridlock, and if you're lucky enough to be in an area where you see a light at the end of the tunnel, I mean, pray there's not a jackknife truck that gets in the way, or a stall bus, or public transportation that goes awry, because that is what is happening over and over again. I just hope that everybody gets to their destinations safely. David and Laurel, back to you.
It'll be fine, they said. Not. As proof of what's been happening with Catherine for the last few hours. They're going 5 miles in that time. Thank you, Catherine. The snow's also causing some issues for TriMet today. The green, orange, and yellow lines are being held up due to all that heavy downtown traffic. Buses have also started to chain up, and that means they can't travel faster than 25 miles per hour when they're chained up. Some bus lines may also be canceled or detoured. So with that in mind, if you are riding public transportation tonight, be sure to budget extra time for your trip. TriMet is also offering free rides for anyone who needs help getting to a warming shelter.
And the number to call 211 there. Speaking of those shelters, Multnomah County will open 4 severe weather shelters in about 45 minutes. So here are the sites: Arbor Lodge on the corner of North Lombard and Denver, the Charles Jordan Community Center on North Foss Avenue, the Salvation Army Moore Street Gym, that is on North Williams, and the East Portland Community Center on Southeast 106. A reminder, no one will be turned away. As we mentioned, free transportation is available. That number, again, 211.
Developing tonight, a Clark County deputy was seriously hurt in a crash that could be related to this snowstorm. The sheriff's office tells us the deputy was driving this morning in Skamania County when part of a large tree broke off and hit his car. And Matt said we may see more of that with limbs falling with this snow. The tree may have been weighed down by all the heavy snow. The deputy has significant injuries and is listed tonight in critical but stable condition. He's being treated at a hospital in Portland, and we send he and his family our best wishes.
We certainly do. You are watching a special edition of KGW News at 7. We're going to check back in with Nat for an update on this storm that just seems to have stalled, or at least slow moving. Check out the view from the Rose City Sky Camera. That's Interstate 5, or what should be Interstate 5. Underneath there, you see emergency vehicles, other vehicles abandoned. It is slow going out there no matter what. We are back after this.
It really does, yeah. And the reason it's so bad is that it's stalled out, and so it just keeps feeding moisture over the same areas, and we just see these snow amounts accumulate. We were just seeing what looked like some transformers blowing outside, and I believe we're on generator power now at KGW. So not good. I mentioned that earlier, that be ready for power outages. That's likely going to happen as we get more snow loading, and then the wind picks up and pushes on trees, power lines, and the like. So yeah. It's likely going to be a fairly rough night. You look at I-5 now, though, from our Rose City Skycam, and things have improved in some spots, but other spots are still, obviously pretty problematic. These guys are stuck and have been here for a while. There's an emergency vehicle here now. I'm not sure if that's a tow truck or not. But we're not, this on-ramp down here, that's the on-ramp to I-5 or I-84 eastbound, that is cleared up. We're not seeing anybody on that, so that's good news there. And just looking at the roads, I'm seeing less traffic compared to what I was seeing earlier. So hopefully the roads are beginning to flush out a bit and people are getting home and staying off the roads. 31 degrees, east winds now at 28 out of the airport. That is a strong wind. The wind chills are going to be down in single digits in the Portland area tomorrow, so it's going to get a lot colder than it is right now. Here's the snow. It's still snowing across most of Multnomah County, good chunk of Clackamas County, and now Washington County has joined the party and gotten into the snow too, and it just keeps rolling. And you see offshore, things are getting a little bit muddled. We're seeing some movement from south to north here, where before we were not. So we may be seeing this area of low pressure kind of weaken and potentially move a little bit, but right now I'm still seeing onshore flow down around Newport. That's feeding the snow bands that we've had stuck over Portland for the last several hours. There are the east winds, still a south wind though in Aurora and McMinnville. I'd love to see that turn to a north-northeast wind, indicating that our area of low pressure is moving south, which means it's moving farther away from us, which would allow the snow to finally relent. But that hasn't happened just yet. Not getting a lot of info basically out of those light winds up at Tillamook and Astoria, not telling us a whole lot. But satellite and radar are. You see the circulation center here. It's getting pushed a little bit in, so it may actually be moving a little bit north, which is interesting. That could induce a bit of a south wind, but right now I think that's a moot point. It's just too cold. It's going to stay rather snowy. The modeling, this is at 7 o'clock tonight, showing it just offshore. Takes it farther offshore, but oh so slowly, throwing another snow band over us in the early morning hours. It will clear out tomorrow, but the cold air is going to be increasingly flooding into western Oregon, and we're going to see very cold numbers by morning. We'll be down in the low 20s. Our high today only 38 in Portland, but that was early in the day. We've been down around freezing for the last several hours. And eastern Oregon also in the 30s, but now in the 20s there. This is our Wells Fargo Skycam, which is frozen. 31 degrees, and the freezing level obviously is down at 0. Temperatures are below freezing pretty much everywhere here inland. So snow showers on the coast, an inch or two at the coast is possible. Some places may get more as the snow bands kind of evolve. In the valleys, we're going to see 1 to 3 inches down the valley. So Salem and Point South, you haven't seen much snow, but you're going to as the system will eventually pull on down to the south. Another 4 to 6 inches in the Cascades, but the big story there will be the below 0 wind chills tomorrow. It's going to be brutally cold. High temperatures, the ski area staying in the single digits. Central and eastern Oregon, below 0 wind chills, some snow showers, but the real story will be the cold temperatures, and winds there will be out of the north up to about 25. For the gorge, east winds will be up to 60 miles an hour tomorrow. Highs will be in the 20s, and your wind chills will be down in the single digits and potentially below 0 too. Another 3 inches possible tonight until these snow bands move out, and then windy and cold tomorrow with a high of 31, but the morning low is 23. Then we're down to 20 on Friday and Saturday morning, eventually climbing back into the 40s beginning on Saturday. Clear weather Saturday, and then a rain snow mix Sunday and beyond, but I think that's mainly just morning snow turning to rain as we climb into the 40s each day.
Those overnight lows, though, I mean, through the weekend, wow.
Yeah, that's the coldest we've seen this winter.
Pretty brutal. Thank you, Matt.
All right, we had a question from a viewer. We want to check out the departure board at PDX. Lots of questions about this, and you can see it on the far right. They're really a sea of red. Most flights canceled for the evening hours. Some have been getting out, but I have to tell you, just looking through, they seem to be delayed 2 or 3 or 4 hours, and then we've got what maybe look like preemptive cancellations into the evening hours. Then again, if you can even head to the airport or head out to pick somebody up, chances are their flight or your flight is probably canceled.
So the weather has caused a lot of problems, but it's been a lot of fun too for a lot of folks who are out in the snow and the pets and everything. We're going to take a look at some of the great pictures that you've been sending in.
And the smiles, right?
And the smiles in just a few minutes.
All right, 7:24. Welcome back on what has turned out to be a very long Wednesday night here with the winter storm. We appreciate you staying at home or someplace safe if you're there. And we also appreciate all of the photos and videos that you have sent to us throughout the day.
We've seen how bad traffic is, but we got to see how wonderful the snow has
Lift
been
us
for a
up
lot
here.
of folks. Brittany Falkers is back in the studio to check out some of our favorite pictures.
Yeah, guys, we've been getting a ton of awesome photos. We've seen a lot of snow in Washington, so we want to start there with this one from Hawkinson Hills in Vancouver. This viewer says that they measured 11 inches in their yard. This was taken earlier today. You can see the sun trying to poke out just a bit, so they've probably gotten even more. And check out this snowy site in Washougal. This is on the top of Mount Norway. You can barely see anything except for just mounds and mounds of snow. It just keeps going. And this is the view northwest of Le Center, where this viewer says they've seen about a foot so far. The snow looks like it's really weighing down those branches. Beautiful photo, too. Hey, in Troutdale, Kelly Jo is just trying to keep the hummingbirds fed in all this winter mess, right? She says they have about 5 inches of snow already, and the snow piles, well, they're continuing to grow. The snow is giving those early spring flowers a run for their money. John Standing shared this one of his Daphne shrub trying to bloom despite being dusted with all sorts of snow. Kind of makes for a pretty juxtaposition though, doesn't it? This little tree in Fairview, Oregon is doing its best to stand tall with that heavy weight of snow. Tracy sent us this one. She says they've gotten 8 inches at her house, and we know the snow is a pain for a lot of people, especially if you have to drive in it, but you know who loves it? This guy right here. He loves it. Yep. Snow is the best thing. Perfect condition for zoomies, apparently. Thanks to Stephen Douglas, who sent in that one for us from Troutdale. I just love seeing the dogs in the snow, guys.
We love it too. Thank you, Brittany. And quick check on the power outages we've been seeing.
Oh yeah, 3,000 plus from PGE, all of them apparently in Southwest Portland right here around KGW. So that's an update for you.
So be prepared tonight for power outages possibly. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of KGW News for snowstorm coverage.
You know what? The snow is still coming down. The east wind is a-blowing, so stay with KGW.com, our app, KGW Plus, as this goes on over the hours and potentially days ahead.
And this is a snow-covered Pioneer Courthouse Square. Hard to believe. Have a great night. We'll see you at 11.